Hello, everybody, and welcome to ATACS, Adults Talk About Cool Stuff. Today is December the 17th, and we have a small panel today of ATACS veterans. With us are Flex from Raleigh, North Carolina, an ATACS champion.
Yeah, I am officially the last person standing. This is episode 4, 4 episodes in. The only one who's been on all of them. I think that earns me like a sticker or a badge or something, right?
Yeah, I guess, or a hat.
I still need to get on those hats.
The hats are a lie.
I'll have to figure that out someday. With us, we also have Nate from Wendell, North Carolina.
Hey, Ryan.
Did he pronounce that right?
I'm going to correct you on the window. I'm just going to let that go. We're going to let it go.
Just going to let it slide.
And I'm your host, Ryan, from New York. And it's, I believe, my third panel, and so they promoted me to host.
Our normal host is I don't know, saving the world or something.
I don't know.
Saving the Elven Kingdoms. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and just jump right into games. We've only got a few of us, but I think a lot of interesting games to talk about. I'm just gonna open it up. Who wants to shoot first?
Well, I have a lot of stuff to talk about because I missed the last one. So,
yeah,
do we want to start with the long ones, or do we want to start with the shorter ones?
You were a slacker skipping podcasts.
Well, you know.
you were playing games instead, though. I say pick one of your bigger ones. Let's just start big.
So one of the games that I've played since we last all spoke was, I guess we can just jump right into Superhot. Do you want to jump right into Superhot?
Super hot.
Hot. I also played Superhot.
Yeah, so I think maybe that's a good place to start. Since we both playing it.
I played it back in like June.
Back before it was cool.
I've got the hipster flex.
So yeah, I guess Ryan, have you played it all the way through, or have you been playing it? Where are you at?
Yes, I have finished all 2 hours of the main campaign.
You really made it through that epic struggle.
It was tough.
I mean, I thought it took me a while to get through Shin Megami Tensei, but whew,
yeah, man,
Superhot just.
Panel, if you haven't played Superhot, you don't know what you're in for. But this game is innovative, and unlike any shooter I've ever seen.
It's the most innovative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that game is really, really cool. Really glad I finally got around to playing it. I played it, I guess, like 2 weeks ago, or maybe 3 weeks ago, in maybe like 2 short sittings, because like you said, it is not very long, and came away from that kind of thinking like, man, I really wish there was more Superhot to be played. And then I came back to it about a week ago and started playing through some of the challenges and extra modes that they have. I'm still enjoying it, but that main game is definitely where it's at, and So I guess we should say what Superhot is in case anybody doesn't know, even though the 3 of us do. Basically, the game is the most innovative first-person shooter you have ever played.
Put a stamp on it.
In that time only moves when you move.
Yeah. Which is a great, by the way, that's a great one-line tutorial that explains the entire game.
Yeah, like you literally jump into the first level, and I think it says that up on the screen.
It does, yeah.
Time only moves when you move, and it's like, okay, now I know how to play this game.
Now I understand Superhot. Great.
And yeah, so it's just a series of levels, first-person shooter, where whenever you move or perform some action in the game, time moves forward a little bit, and you have to kill all the enemies who are just sort of faceless red dudes in this stark white environment that you're in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And time does move a little bit if you're standing still, so you can't sit there and think forever like there is. You have
a little bit of pressure on you at all times, and they'll do things like start a level off. They do this a lot actually, where you're like in immediate danger, Like,
Mhm.
you start the level, and the first thing you see is a gun in your face. And so you have to learn how to deal with that, and using this time mechanic to sort of maneuver around not only enemies and the environment, but you maneuver around bullets that are flying through the air, because since time moves so slowly when you are not moving, you can sort of see their trajectory and get a feel for speed and things like that, and try to dodge around. And
So I guess I'll go ahead and jump in here.
yeah,
and
so
say,
what are your overall thoughts on that game now that you've played it?
So I mean, I do really like the gameplay concept. I think that style of, it ends up being like a mix between a puzzle and an action shooter game.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I would
and-
actually say it's more puzzle than action or shooter.
At its core, it probably is more like a puzzle game.
Yeah.
In some ways, I mean, you are rewarded for making accurate shots, but you're right. Like it's like with time stopping all the time, you don't really have to make like do a lot of Twitch stuff, unless you want to just move at full speed and play like a maniac.
Then it would be really hard.
Ooh, yeah, that would be rough. Yeah, I usually found that like if I kept pausing and made it almost turn-based, then it was like just figuring out the actions to do and then performing them usually wasn't that hard. So it was really just like piecing together a thing to do.
So the style, I mean, is super cool. You feel like you're playing like an action scene out of like The Matrix or a Kung Fu movie or some other like crazy stop motion or slow motion.
And then I'll throw in there the one other cool touch they do to that effect is that when you finish a level, it shows you a replay without any of the time effects. So it runs at full speed, showing you exactly what you did.
You throw your weapon.
Yeah, I like that you throw your weapon too. That's really great. He's just like, screw this, I don't need this gun no more.
I will say, like, I actually, in a future Game of the Year discussion, which may or may not be happening soon, I was actually going to give Superhot a shout out for one of my most disappointing of the year.
Okay.
Just because, like, for a game that was so stubbornly high priced, for an indie game that was so stubbornly high priced. I mean, the main campaign, as we discussed, is basically 2 hours.
Sure.
Long. I haven't tried any of the endless stuff, but the game kind of didn't grab me enough that I really want to go back for it.
Sure.
But for a game that's so stubbornly high priced, there just wasn't a lot of main content. The graphics were, I mean, they were effective, but also kind of ugly.
I don't know. I really like the way that game looks. I think it's like I mean that game, like with the action you're doing is super stylish, and I think the look it's going for is also like very stylish in an effective way that works for the action it's pulling off.
Yeah.
I really like the stark red and white contrast, and then like the weapons are I think mostly black. So like everything's just very clearly contrasted and just stands out as like this like highly stylized thing.
I can see that, but at the same time, for a game that's $25 and lasts 2 hours, like having these kind of if it was like $5 or $10, like sure, they were going on a low budget, like doing something cool, but like for a game that wants to be 25, I think the best sell I got it on was 15, which for an indie game is still pretty high. The other thing was just that the campaign, like, it's kind of clever, but it didn't really like that cleverness they did kind of rubbed me a little bit the wrong way. So that's just a personal touch. But overall, I feel like that game is a really cool concept that they wanted to milk pretty hard.
I think you can make the price argument for that game. That it maybe was priced a little high for what it is. That didn't bother me. I waited for it to come down. I think I got it at 15, like you said, and I think that was a totally fair price for my enjoyment of that game.
Yeah, I do agree 25 is high, but 15 I think is reasonable. My biggest gripe with the game is that it's very thin. Like I don't mind a 2-hour campaign necessarily.
Right.
But then the bonus mode. So like I really enjoyed the campaign, and then I tried to go back into the bonus modes, and it's like, oh okay, it's kind of more of that. Like it didn't really. didn't really feel like it had the legs to kind of branch out any more than what it did in the campaign, which kind of then made me start thinking about like, oh, I really like the core mechanics and ideas in this game. Like I think, like I mean, in some way, like we joke about the most innovative shooter in years, but like in some ways, like I think that game's core mechanic and play loop is one of the most exciting things I've played in a while.
That's an inside joke, by the way.
Yeah. The game uses that joke itself.
Yeah.
But like I also started to think after the fact that like, you know, maybe even in that short campaign they may have done basically everything they could do with that mechanic. Like it might be a small and simple enough mechanic that there's just not a lot of mileage they could get out of it. So like that ended up making it feel like kind of a small thing in a way, and like that was my ultimate like detractor from that game.
Yeah, I mean, I think they definitely could have come up with more levels that would have still been fun. You know, maybe if they had extended it to like a 5 or 6 hour campaign without any different mechanics, it might have worn out its welcome. I'm not sure, but I definitely think you could have had more than what was there and not lost anything. I do agree that I think the additional challenge modes that unlock when you finish the game are kind of uninspiring. Like the first, especially like when you first get those unlocked, the first one you see is katana only mode.
Yeah.
Which is like, on paper, I guess, sounds like the thing that people would want. Oh,
that sounds great on paper.
Just give me a sword and I'll kill everybody. But like in the context of that game's mechanics, that's actually not fun at all.
Yeah, like that. Yeah, that game's way more fun when you're like shooting and then throwing your empty gun at someone and then catching their gun out of the air and like doing all that other stuff. And
yeah,
when you start the level with the sword and that's the only thing you can kill people with, like it actually becomes more limited in a way.
Yeah, like progressing through some of the challenge modes, some of them are better than that. I wouldn't say any of them are great, but like one of the better ones that I've done was that time does completely stop when you're not moving.
Okay.
So that's a change to make it almost, like you said, like fully turn-based.
Right.
But enemy bullets move faster, so it's harder to dodge.
Okay.
And every gun that you get only has one bullet.
Okay.
So like that kind of changes the flow of that game in a way that I enjoyed, but the katana only mode was like a dumb little thing that you had to do to get to that.
Yeah, and all of those challenges, for anyone who's not aware, it's taking the exact same levels in the campaign and then just applying these rules twists to them. So you're not getting new levels, you're just getting new rules scenarios.
Yeah. So I guess in summary, like Superhot is a pretty cool game that's maybe a little thin, and in my view, a little. It has its flaws.
I wouldn't argue that it doesn't have as much as I wanted out of it, but it's still really freaking cool.
Yeah. If you say to me like you can play this really incredibly fun thing that for 2 hours for $15, like that's totally fine for me. Part of me still kind of wishes that like they had gotten a little bit more mileage out of, like, you know, some more levels or something, like just some more mileage out of mechanic. I think it's mostly that like I think those mechanics are so neat that like I feel like I just wanted something more out of it. And to not get that was a little bit of a letdown. But like playing through the campaign was really fun.
Yeah, playing through the campaign for me was not a letdown at all. The only letdown for me came when I got to that end point and was like, man, I really want to play more of this because it's so cool.
Yeah, but the more that's there is not really what you want.
There is not really quite up to par. Yeah. So that's really the only letdown I had with that. Other than that, I really, really like Superhot.
Otherwise, Superhot is super cool.
Super hot. Oh man,
I've been saving that one just for you guys.
So Nate, what else is on your list?
Okay, so
you guys brought me on here for some reason.
We're just gonna move on. The other games that I have played since last time was, I played more Pokemon, which we've talked about enough, I feel like. Probably.
A listener They haven't heard some of that.
Yeah. So for the record, in addition to actually talking about it on our past 2 episodes of this, we may have done a Pokemon specific recording that may have gotten lost. But
yeah, well,
may or may not.
Things happen. Anyway.
So yeah, I mean, I played more Pokemon, finished the main game of that, started catching all the new Pokemons to fill out my decks when the bank opens late in January, but I won't spend much time on that. The other 2 games I have played was Inside,
Yeah.
Playdead, the makers of Limbo, so this is their next game. So I played that all the way through, and then I had also started playing some of Thumper, which is that rhythm violence game, self-described rhythm violence.
Yeah. Violence against your thumb.
Yeah, thumb violence.
So Inside, before Thumper, Inside is something that's kind of been popping up on my radar here recently. I don't know if I'll play it before the new year because I'm trying to wrap up a couple other titles, but it seems like it's come out really strong. Like I didn't really hear about it until like this past month.
I mean, it came out in like, I don't know, July or something, sometime in the summer, and like it came out, and I played it pretty soon after it came out, and it got like it is one of, like, it and Uncharted 4 are the top 2 highest rated games of the year. I think they're about the same. But like that thing came out to just incredible acclaim, and so people were talking about it like just nonstop for weeks.
It's done by the creators of Limbo, and I'm guessing it's a game in the same vein as Limbo, sort of like a platformy, puzzly, atmospheric type thing.
Yeah, that's a pretty good description of it. It's a 2D platformer puzzle game with very thick atmosphere, and if you played Limbo, that a lot of those ideas and systems and feelings start to kind of resurface Inside, but it is different enough. I would not say it's just more Limbo at all.
Yeah, how does it distinguish itself? Because I mean, Limbo was a game I played and I kind of enjoyed it, but to me it wasn't like. I mean, I think it was pretty well received for its atmosphere, but to me it wasn't like Braid or any of those games. It was just kind of like pretty good.
Right.
I wasn't a huge fan of like the noir. Dark, disturbing.
It is still dark and disturbing. I would say in a little less like direct way.
Yeah, like it's not as grisly as Limbo. Like your character deaths are not like Limbo could get pretty gnarly with that with your character deaths. I don't think Inside gets as dark with those, but some of the like story and thematic undertones of Inside get probably way darker than Inside did.
Yeah, like Limbo would get dark and messed up by like a giant spider creature ripping you apart.
Yeah,
because you got caught by it. This game is a lot more like I don't know, just like the themes and small things happening in the game are just so creepy.
Yeah,
and strange.
Yeah, it's more of like you as you're walking along, like you just see something in the background that at first seems kind of minor or subtle, but then as you start seeing more of those through the game and piecing it together, you're like, wait, what is going on here? This is messed up.
Yeah, like most of that game you spend saying exactly like that, what he just said. Just what is happening here? This place is not right.
Yeah.
I need to get out of here. Feeling.
Is it like the storytelling or just the general puzzling that has made the game?
It kind of all blends into one.
I mean, it's kind of the environmental storytelling. Like, there's not narration or dialogue, really. It's just, like, the way the world looks and feels as you move through it, and the other characters and what they are doing, even though you rarely directly interact with very many other characters. It's just, like, this sort of overall sense of things are not good.
Yeah, it's really told through the atmosphere and the music and just the things you see happening in the environment around you and sometimes to you. It's a really And I think that's where the game gets a lot of its praise from, is it does an amazing job at just building its world through sights and sounds. Like, it really conveys a sense of place and just stuff happening without any direct exposition at all.
Yeah. It pretty much never tells you what to do, but you all pretty much always know what you need to be doing, which is get out of here.
Run for your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, very mild early game spoilers, I guess, is the game opens with you taking control of this young boy who's the main character in the woods, and you're running from these people, and you don't know why, like, as the player.
Yeah, but they look terrifying enough that you want to run from them.
But yeah, like, the second you see these people, and they're just people as far as you can tell, they're wearing masks and it's dark and they're carrying flashlights, so there's some, inherent menacing qualities to that already, but just like everything about the sounds and the way the forest looks and the way they're running at you and the animation going on there, like, you just know instinctually, like, I need to go. I need to go somewhere else, and I need to get away from these people.
They're over there, and screw that, I'm going over here.
Yeah. That sounds great. I mean, that's how I want to start every game.
Yeah, that pretty much is a lot of the game. And it gets, like, that's actually great that you described how it opens, which is running from men in the woods. Because, like, that's a fairly grounded, like, it's a scary situation, but it's also fairly grounded. And the game it never loses that sense of, like, dread or like, just being frightened or however you want to describe it. But the things that are causing that get progressively weirder as the game goes on, and it keeps ramping that stuff up in a really fascinating way.
It never gives you enough time with any one setting or type of obstacle to get comfortable.
Yeah.
And so, like, by the time you have outrun enough of these guys in the woods, you're reaching another area with its own separate weird challenges. And so you just never really get that sense of, like, okay, I figured it out, I'm just going to do this now.
Yeah.
So it's like Dark Souls, except you're a little boy with no weapons.
Yeah, and I don't want to mislead anybody about what we're talking. We're not talking about a gameplay and mechanical challenge.
Yeah.
And, like, getting comfortable with it and stuff. It's just, like, that environmental, emotional sense of the game is trying to kill me.
Yeah. And actually, one of my, like, the thing I don't like as much about Inside is I felt like mechanically it was very straightforward and simple.
Yeah,
like,
it is.
Yeah, I don't feel like it ever, like, it's basically a series of very linear puzzles, and, like, I never felt confused on where to go or what to do. Like, everything was very straightforward, I felt. Like, I don't remember getting stumped at all.
Right.
And, yeah, like, even less than Limbo, it felt like Limbo I thought had some pretty decent puzzles, but, like, this one feels even more straightforward, from what I remember of Limbo. Like, I think a lot of the environmental stuff is improved over Limbo. Not to make direct comparisons, but, like, I think their environmental stuff is really impressive in Inside. But, like, mechanically, the playing it part was could be pretty bland at times, I felt.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a particularly hard game. Not that it needs to be.
No, it doesn't need to be, but, like, it's not just not being hard. There's, like, not really anything interesting mechanically speaking going on. Thematically and atmospherically speaking, there is very interesting stuff going on.
Yeah.
But mechanically, maybe not as much. Until you get to that ending sequence, which, of course, we're not going to spoil.
Yeah,
but
we're not going to talk about that here, but oh man.
Oh boy, like, that game is pretty much built for the final 20 minutes, and, like, I had even heard that the ending was a trip before I played it, but I was still not prepared for exactly what kind of trip, and, like, it is worth like, the way that game ramps up, it is worth playing through that game to experience that ending. Like, it is something else. Yeah. Like, I could not believe they went there. Like, that.
And how long does the game run?
I would say like 3-ish hours, maybe.
Yeah, 3 to 4 hours, I would say, is about what it took me.
Yeah, like that ending was very much one of those just like, holy cow, like what they're really going here. Okay, let's do this.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I really like about that game, in terms of like saying, oh, the ending is cool, is a lot of games you can, if it has a good story or a good dialogue or a good ending or whatever, you can kind of just watch a YouTube video and get most of the effect. But I feel like you need to play that game to really get that effect.
Yeah, like that game is very much a slow build. Like you're starting with guys in the forest chasing you, and it just keeps ramping from start to finish, and like it really nails like that final 20-minute segment or however long it takes. Like it really is the culmination of everything you've been seeing, and it's not going to make any sense or seem that impressive if you haven't had that build.
Right, and like the act of actually like controlling the character through the world and like having that sort of connection with the character sort of builds your as the player's emotions up. More than if you were just watching, and then when it makes that leap at the end, you're kind of like, okay, this is crazy, this is different, like, you know.
Yeah.
Not going to spoil anything.
Yeah, not going to spoil anything, but it really shakes things up in an amazing way.
Right. And you mentioned Thumper was another game on your...
Yeah, I've been playing some Thumper. I think I'm like halfway through it. It's a rhythm game.
Yeah, and we talked about it a good bit 2 episodes ago. Yeah, I think it was.
Okay.
It was the one Ryan was out, I think.
Okay.
Oh, wait, which one was that? Okay. Anyway.
You were on it, Nate. I remember.
I was doing something else probably.
I mean, you can still talk about it some, but we have talked about it a little bit. I mean, I do want to hear what you thought about it.
So it's a rhythm game where it's basically you're running down a track and it's presenting you with challenges that the game trains you on. So you need to press this button when this thing is coming up on the track. Is basically the simple way to put the gameplay.
Yeah.
But then it sort of merges with the music, which is very heavy, rhythmic, oppressive drums.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very aggressive and mostly percussion based.
Yeah, mostly percussion. Some like synthesizer stuff too, I guess.
Yeah.
But it is, it's sort of an audio-visual experience as much as anything, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard some people describe it as like almost a horror game, just with all the visuals going on being...
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't go that far, but I can see why people would say that.
Yeah, so it's kind of a weird thing, because it is a rhythm game, and it's a very challenging rhythm game.
Yeah.
But then there's this sort of wrapper of this crazy psychedelic horror Cthulhu nightmare.
Yep.
In the music and presentation visually, and I've gone up and down with that game more times than I can count. Like there are points when I was playing it, especially early on, like when I was first getting into it, like where I was like, this is one of the best games of the year. Like this is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are plenty of points, probably more of these, where I'm like, this level is not clicking with me, or I can't figure out like how I'm supposed to do something mechanically, or occasionally, and this is probably the worst thing, I'm just getting a little bored or maybe fatigued by the constant sameness of a lot of it.
Right. Yeah, I definitely, I wouldn't call it boredom, but I definitely got fatigued if I played in long sessions. Like, I did at most one level per play session. Like, I took that game very much in bite-sized chunks, and I enjoyed it from start to finish.
Those levels are not bite-sized, though.
No, they're not. That's why I said at most one level. Like, by the time I was halfway, like, the first few levels I did one level per sitting. But then at some point I started doing like 3/4 of a level or half of a level. Like I started really reducing how much I was playing at a time, because I mean, one level there were 9 levels in the game, but they can be up to like 30 stages apiece. And if you play like some of those later levels, if you played the entire level through one sitting, like if you're failing here and there like I do, like it could take over an hour for one level easy. I mean, if you're just acing it, it'll be quicker, but like it's not a small investment to just sit down and play one level necessarily.
Right. So yeah, I don't know where I'm eventually gonna land on that. I need to go back and play it some more. I kind of got to the point where I'm at, like in level 5 out of 9, where I just kept picking it up and trying a stage or two, and then putting it back down because I just wasn't feeling it. And after I did that a couple times,
sign.
Yeah, after I did that a couple times, I went back and started playing more Superhot. So
not a great sign for a game.
I kind of want to push through it some more and see some of the later game stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I would say is I think the last few stages are kind of incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, at the same time, that's only like 3 or 4 stages out of the, roughly almost 30 times 9 stages that are in the game.
Yeah,
so if you're really not enjoying it, it may not be worth pushing through, but because, like, levels 6, 7, 8, so forth, like, it just keeps getting harder, and it's still very similar. I mean, I really enjoyed the game start to finish. Like, I definitely felt that fatigue, and I, like, really had to play it in small bursts to get to the most out of it. Like, I mean, not only because it's just intense, but it hurt my thumb also.
Yeah. It does hurt your thumb.
Which is, as we talked about.
Which platform is this?
It's on Steam and PS4.
Yeah.
I played it on Steam.
It's actually on PSVR if anybody has that.
Yeah.
Wants to try that out.
Yeah. VR. It was heavily marketed as a PSVR launch game, but you can play it without VR on Steam or PS4.
So I have it on Steam, but I've been playing with the PS4 controller. So
yeah, same here.
I have another question, Nate. How long does your list go? How many more games have you knocked down since the last month?
That's actually it. So we should probably move on to somebody else.
Yeah, Thumper is fun, but I totally see how it could wear out its welcome.
I'm gonna try it at least one more time because, like I said, some of the early parts of that game where I was getting into it, I really liked where it was going.
Yeah.
And then at some point, I just played it too much all at once, and I just couldn't do it anymore. And now that I've been away for a few days, maybe I'll come back and it'll be good again.
Yeah. I give it at least one more shot. I like that game. I like rhythm games in general, but it's neat. I won't say I loved it, but it's neat.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on.
So Flex, what have you got on the play radar?
I've really only played different games over the past 2 weeks, to any substantial degree. One of which is Pokemon. I've poked at that a little more. Nothing new to add in addition to what we've been saying in normal and non-normal episodes of ATACS.
Poplio is the worst.
Poplio's still the best.
Anyway.
Anyone who ridicules Popilo is just a bad person. That's just all there is to it.
That's a fact.
Yeah, a fact. I'm just still going there. I think I'm about to start the 3rd or 4th trial. I forget which one. It's the one in the Fire Mountain thing.
So that's on the second island?
Yeah, I'm on the second island. My dudes are all in like the low to mid-20s.
Right.
And so that keeps going on. I'm weirdly like, I don't know. I rarely feel the urge to play it. Like, it just feels kind of like I'm trudging through. But I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But
yeah, I mean, those games are all pretty similar, so I don't...
Yeah, maybe I've just played too many Pokemon games at this point.
One thing I did want to say about Pokemon is that, Gen 7 is a pretty small step, I guess.
Yeah.
And because I like what they were trying to do with the Alola forms and things like that, but like we discussed last week in the non-recorded podcast, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of variety in this Pokemon's campaign. Like, you see a lot of Gen 1 Pokemon, just regular form. Like, a lot of the good guys you see that are easily accessible are like guys you played with in Red and Blue, and that's also been a bit of a bummer to me because it took a lot of effort to find like new ones that were interesting.
It is hard to find new Pokemon in this game, which is a weird inversion of what it was like 2 generations ago in like specifically like
Black and White, yeah.
Where they actually restricted the main game to only be new Pokemon types. And so you just found the same stuff all the time across the whole game.
Yeah, I think X and Y, they didn't purely restrict you, but they had a lot of the new gen stuff.
Yeah, X and Y felt like a really good mix. Yeah. So my current team of 6 has 4 Gen 1 Pokemon on it. Yeah. And I may end up being my final team. I don't know. Because they're all really good. But yeah, so I'm just still poking away at that. Don't really have much to add. The other game I've played is from start to finish, I played through Quadrilateral Cowboy.
Oh, I have questions about that.
Yeah, I figured you might. So ask me anything about Quadrilateral Cowboy.
Is it like 30 Flights of Loving?
No! It is not complete garbage.
So what is Quadrilateral Cowboy? I heard the name.
Yeah, Quadrilateral Cowboy is like a programming-themed puzzle game. So you, it does have the same art style as 30 Flights of Loving, but other than that, there's very little connection. I guess the other connection is you're going on heists, but it's longer than 15 minutes, first of all.
Yeah.
And you actually do stuff gameplay-wise in it.
What?
Yeah,
so
I know.
Motivated.
I know. They're really breaking away from their roots here. Really fun fact. Will was hanging out this weekend, and he wanted to see what this was completely unrelated to me playing Quadrilateral Cowboy, but he wanted to see 30 Flights of what 30 Flights of Loving was. Didn't want to buy it for himself, so he just played it on my computer in 15 minutes. Yeah. And when he was done, he was like, "I don't get what the big deal was." But anyway,
I don't either.
Yeah,
nobody does.
Nobody does,
but we don't.
David Jaffe does.
I missed this. Is there like internet hate against this 30 Flights of Loving?
No, people really like it.
There was a lot of internet love for that game when it came out.
Yeah, it's it costs like $5 or something, and it's literally 15 minutes long, and you really don't do anything in it. You basically just walk through it and see this quote-unquote short story unfold. And people
like walking simulator.
If you want to use that term, sure.
I think short story is a good way to talk about that game. Like, it really is kind of a video game equivalent of a short story, but it doesn't really do much. Like, it has a couple of cool narrative devices.
Yeah.
It uses.
It has some neat storytelling ideas, but even compared to most quote-unquote walking simulators, you really just walk through a 15-minute thing. There's really nothing you can do to interact, or choose which direction you go or anything. It really just is hey, just walk this line and go.
Yeah. And I honestly wouldn't say that 30 Flights of Loving is a bad thing to exist.
No, it's not. I'm actually really happy it exists, but paying money for it.
Pay $5
yeah,
for it.
Paying money for that thing is almost borderline criminal in my line. You should just no one. No one should do anything more than just go watch that on YouTube or something. I am glad that it exists because it has some neat storytelling things, but it's just paying money for that is kind of ridiculous. Yeah. But anyway.
Audiobook, so maybe it's sort of the same thing.
Yeah. But anyway, Quadrilateral Cowboy, fortunately, is nothing like that, gameplay-wise. Right. There are levels you work through. Every level you go in, it's all right, your objective is to get the safe from the library or something. And you're all right, how are we going to do that? And you're carrying around the laptop at all times, and there will be security systems like laser grids or alarms or locked doors or just things that you need to get through. So you literally, and I think this is the coolest idea, is you're literally just all right, I'm going to walk up to this door, throw my laptop down, hack into the telnet by literally typing commands, and then saying door.open 3 seconds or whatever. So you're literally just walking around, throwing down your laptop and jacking into stuff and fiddling with all these security systems so that you can get through. And it's a series of levels of doing that. And then they also do a pretty good job of ramping up your equipment over the course of the game. So when you first start, you just have your laptop, and you like just jack into, like I said, doors and laser grids and that kind of stuff. Then at some point you start learning more commands. So like you learn a wait command. So like, oh, you can, and you learn how to string commands together. So you can be like, okay, wait, then open this door for 3 seconds, because if you open things for more than 3 seconds, alarms go off. And then I have to like run through this door, and then I queued up another wait, and then the laser grid goes off, and like you can start chaining these things together in elaborate ways. And then as it goes, they give you this thing called a weaver, which is this little like robot dog thing almost. And they give you like a camera or like a screen that you set down next to your laptop that you can see through the eyes of this guy. And then you have a bunch of commands for him, so you can connect directly to this weaver, and then you can tell it to go and turn and jump, and you're like seeing through its eyes on your screen. So you can like use him to get around, and he can hack into things, and then at some point you get like this suitcase that has a gun in it, and you can set that down somewhere, and then log into that, and you see like the gun camera on the screen, and you can like turn it around and shoot things. So like basically what I'm getting at is like as you go, the game really builds out your tool set and constructs these like fairly elaborate environments to work through and hack into these things. And it ends up being pretty neat, because you're just constantly like picking up your laptop, throwing it down, jamming out some code to hack into something, and then ultimately escape with a safe or a file or something like that. So it ends up
like an action game or a puzzle game, or
I would definitely call it a puzzle game. Like there are a few timing based like elements, but especially with like your wait commands or whatever. But it's usually just like figuring out what you need to do, like what doors or whatever you need to get through in what order to get to your target.
Right. Okay.
Did that effectively explain what the game is?
Yeah, I still have a lot of questions about
Sure.
the game. But,
Go for it.
Okay, so there are levels.
Mm-hmm.
Totally separate from each other.
Sometimes there'll be like, they actually do this multiple times, there'll be a series of 3 levels that you'll like go back into the same environment, but you like have a different target.
Right. Okay.
But mostly, yes, they're pretty separate from each other.
But it's mostly separate levels and a linear progression.
Yes. Yeah, it is a 100% linear progression.
Okay. And your like upgrades that you were talking about that you get, are they just throughout at certain levels you get different upgrades?
Yep, they're story based.
And you don't bring those back, and you can't like go back and play previous levels with those upgrades or anything like that?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Usually between a level you'll get an upgrade, and then there will be like a short tutorial level teaching you how to use it, because you kind of have to learn the commands for all the upgrades. So yeah, like you'll do a level using what you got, and then, or a series of levels, and then you'll like, they still use some of the storytelling techniques, so like there's still a lot of like hard cuts and stuff that 30 Flights had.
Yeah.
And then you're like going to this cat who runs this shop, and he's like, here, take this gun in a suitcase. And you get that, and then it'll like put you in this little room and like show you some of the commands. And you can always type help on your laptop to get the commands for whatever you're using, but
yeah, how big is the commands list?
It's not that big. Like it's really just a few commands for hacking into the things you need to, and then like the Weaver guy has, I don't know, half a dozen commands or so, and then the gun has like half a dozen. So I mean, I would like the overall command list in the game is, I don't know, 30-ish maybe. That's just a rough guess.
Yeah,
and they're mostly very intuitive.
That's sizable.
Yeah.
But you only start with a couple.
Yeah, you only start with a couple.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like a better programmer now?
No, this game is not going to make you a better programmer, and you also don't need to know programming to play it. It's more that it couches its puzzles in a programming theme than being actual programming. Like the syntax looks and acts a lot like programming, but like, I mean, it's still also its own syntax, and like it's very straightforward. So it's not real programming by any stretch.
Can you write comments in your code?
No, you cannot. At least not that I know of. And you're just executing one line of code at a time, so you're really like you can't. I mean, you can queue up commands. So like my one line of code could be wait semicolon door open semicolon wait semicolon turn off lasers.
Terrible readability, man. You got to work on that.
Yeah.
They need a style guide for this game, along with some threading and.
I mean, you would think as video game developers they would be programmers and would have better style than that, but sometimes it just doesn't work out.
They're just giving you the tools. You're the one who's doing bad stuff with it.
Well, another really cool command they give you later on is called blink, and there's a button where you literally blink your eyes, and you can assign commands to blinking.
Okay.
So you could say like blink. You could say like blink 2. Open this door, and then you can step away from your laptop and leave it there, and then if you blink twice in a row really quick, it'll execute that command.
Oh, okay.
So
you're like setting up your blink as a function call that.
Yes.
Your physical blink is somehow triggering your laptop.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't ask me the technology behind that, but
yeah.
Pretty advanced stuff.
Yeah.
Probably wearing like Google Glass or something.
Probably. Probably.
Door. Wait. Open the door.
Yeah, it can.
Lasers.
Yeah, it can get pretty elaborate, and you can set up. Yeah, you could set up multiple blinks. Like you could have, a blink 1, a blink 2, a blink 3, a blink 50, or however many blinks you want to do. Like, so you could set up a lot of commands on that.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. What other questions?
Is that your list? The Quadrilateral Cowboy? Quadrilateral.
That game.
Work on them P's and Q's.
QC.
I have one more question about Quadrilateral Cowboy, and then we'll move on. Does it have like a narrative or a plot that you
Dude, I heard cat
in
in a
or...
store with a gun and a suitcase. How could... Let
me rephrase this. Did you enjoy whatever plot or storyline it presented you?
It has a cat running a store with a gun and a briefcase, so yes.
Okay.
So you play as one of 3 women who are like on this team of hacking heist people. Like you're consistently going on heists, and they kind of ramp up in scope on what you're getting, and like I didn't love the story, but I didn't hate it either. Like I mean, it was an okay story. Like I don't think it was amazing, but it was fine for what it was. Like I think it was effective for the theme of the game. Okay. I mean, it uses a lot of the techniques of 30 Flight. So like there is some environmental story stuff, like you can kind of look around the rooms that you hang out in and like kind of get a sense of what these people's lives are like, and they're maybe not really well off and trying to do these heists to scrape by and all that stuff. So like you get a little bit of sense of camaraderie between the 3 women, and as it wraps up, it kind of hints at some passage of time and like how they've grown old together and that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
so
all
like
that stuff sounds very similar to 30 Flight.
Yeah, it is very similar to that game from a storytelling perspective.
Which is fine. Like I think that game did do some cool stuff.
Yeah, I mean that was the strength of 30 Flights, was its storytelling stuff, and I think it works well enough here. I wouldn't say I wouldn't say I love the story, but it was effective. And like overall, I definitely enjoyed the game. I think some of the later puzzles I didn't enjoy as much. There's a little bit of obtuseness to some of the later mechanics, which actually don't involve programming, and that was when I enjoyed it less. There's a mechanic they introduce later where you're switching between characters and not doing any programming at all, and those puzzles I just did not find interesting. Like I think that game's at its best when you're doing those programming puzzles, and when they got away from that, it kind of lost me a little bit. But the majority of the game was the programming, and I did think that stuff was interesting. It was never that complicated, and the puzzles never really got that hard. So I felt like they could have maybe pushed that part of it a little more. Mm-hmm. But what they did, I thought was good, and I enjoyed.
Cool.
And that's all I've been playing.
right.
All right. Well, I've only got a couple things to add to the list.
What you got?
I also played Superhot, and I've been playing Pokemon. We talked a little bit about those games. The other two games I have are Final Fantasy 15. I don't know if either of you have had a chance to start that yet.
I'm not familiar. What is Final Fantasy?
Final Fantasy.
No, I have not gotten a chance to get to that yet.
It's this obscure JRPG franchise made by a company now called Square Enix.
Okay.
After many years and different names. It's been in development forever.
Yeah. Yes, it has.
The beginning of time, since before Final Fantasy 1.
Yep.
So neither of you guys have played it yet?
No, I have not gotten to it.
Yeah, I don't want to spend too much time on it since I'm only about 10-ish hours in, but I mean, so far it's kind of grabbing me. I think it's feeling like it's a solid entry to the Final Fantasy franchise. I mean, I'm not gonna say it's like this is worth waiting 15 or 10 years or 7 years or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think they've done a really good job from what I've seen of, I mean, of course it's beautifully produced. The graphics are great. The theme and the setting is really cool. The kind of four guys on a road trip. You're like this prince of a kingdom. So your character has a little bit of backstory to make him. He has a reason to be on a journey. They've done a really great job of something that's maybe not uniquely Final Fantasy, but more recently in the modern Final Fantasies, kind of blending a modern setting and technology with sort of kind of high fantasy magic.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, they've been doing that since at least Final Fantasy VI. To some degree.
Yeah, to some degree.
Well, airships have been around since like
one or was maybe not actually.
Don't
early. At least by 4.
One.
That might have been one. I can't remember.
Yeah. Anyway.
Definitely in by 3.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So I guess I won't go much farther because hopefully I'll have beaten it by the next time.
Yeah, we'll definitely have time to talk about this later because I think Nate and I are going to both play it at some point probably. But did you? I stepped out real quick. Did you say how long you've been playing?
About 10 hours.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, it's kind of grabbing me.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, my only complaint so far is that there are a lot of complex systems and it's a bit of a slow ramp. But
what are you talking about?
So
it's an open world. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm talking also in terms of like controls, like just moving around.
I did. A lot of the gripes I did hear were kind of control and camera related, especially in tight corridors and stuff.
I mean, now that I'm getting into it, I feel like I'm getting more and more the hang of it, which is a good feeling. But at first, it was kind of like, what are these guys going for? Am I ever going to get the hang of this? Because 3D games and action and things like that can be hard to pull off. But anyway, I
do have one quick question. Is in general, have you been enjoying the combat?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The controls I mentioned.
Yeah.
A little bit to begin with, but I do like the.
Okay.
Now that I'm getting the hang of it, I'm able to execute more techniques in battle, block more effectively, and I'm doing active combat. I've heard you can play the game in more wait mode combat, and some people that's totally their thing. But I just run around and slash things, and
I
like the spell casting system. I think it's kind of neat that you get these you can kind of craft these almost like grenades.
Right. Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah. So it's
Okay, yeah, you think it feels good to play, and it's not been really repetitive or mashy or anything?
The combat?
Yeah, the combat.
I mean, maybe a little bit because there are a lot of you can easily run into a lot of unimportant encounters and just hold circle and kind of slash your way through it. But
right,
that's that's been fun, and a few of the boss fights have been interesting. I mean, we'll have. I guess I have yet to see if like any of the boss fights feel really like epic and lengthy.
Yeah.
Some of them have felt pretty good.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I'm
that
sure.
seems cool. I'm looking forward to trying that game out.
Yeah, I'm certainly skeptical about some things, but I've gotten to the point where I'm just gonna have to try it myself to know.
Yeah.
And I mean the setting and like the banter between the guys and like the story so far, I think have definitely been
Yeah.
a story worth telling.
I do like that you have to pump your own gas.
Unless you're at Hammerhead, then Cindy will pump it for you.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, so I guess the last game to talk about before the break, which all three of us have played, but we'll warn our listeners that there may be some spoilers. You may want to skip ahead to the break music. Is Oxenfree.
Yeah.
Ollie Ollie.
Which was a game I played for a couple hours. I
Yeah.
heard that once in the game.
Yeah, I actually don't know if they. I mean, I know that was the inspiration for the name of the game, but I don't actually know if they said it much in the game.
Like once.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard to describe that game, I guess.
Yeah.
It starts out as, to use that kind of reductive, quote unquote, walking sim thing. Like it almost starts out feeling kind of like that. You just start out and like you can move around, but it's just you're following these like teenagers around while they're dialoguing with each other.
Yeah.
And then the game starts giving you like, you start realizing like, okay, well, somebody asks you a question and you can respond 2 or 3 different ways, and like depending on how you respond, like that might actually change the direction, like who ends up accompanying you to do something, or who ends up like doing a particular task. And then of course the story kind of ramps up and goes off the deep end pretty quickly.
Yeah. That game goes places.
Yeah.
So I ended up actually really enjoying it though. It started out, I wasn't sure what was up, but it's between like the meaningful decisions and like the atmosphere and like it does, I guess, some kind of jump scare type things and some just kind of creepy mess with your head type things. It ended up being really entertaining. Plus, I feel like maybe there's something to, your choices like leading you to hang out with different characters, and you learn more. Maybe if I played through the game again, I would see more of like a different person. There would be a different outcome.
Yeah, I think that is a kind of an interesting thing about that game and a lot of games that do similar stuff, is that you don't necessarily see the complexity of that system if you just kind of play through it and don't think about it, which is what I basically did with that game.
Yeah, me too.
Like I wasn't really thinking about like, oh, what I say to this person is going to have a big impact. And so I still at this point don't really have like a good understanding or appreciation for how complex or not complex that system may be in that game. Like I don't really know what the scope of things that could happen is. For me, that was just the way it happened.
Yeah, like I definitely got the sense that different choices you would make could have different impact down the road, but then they, as you go on, and especially when you end the game, the game really kind of hints that like, oh, this could all play out very differently, and there's a whole lot more going on behind the scenes here than you maybe realize. And if you play through it again, new game plus it or whatever, it's going to reveal a whole lot more of what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, you get sort of that sense, I guess, but I didn't really interact with the game in that way. I just sort of played through it, which I think isn't a bad thing. Like, I think it actually is a strength of that game that I didn't really like feel like it was pointing me every time that I had to do something like, oh, think about what's gonna maybe this will matter, wink wink. Like it was just it felt very natural, and like the way that my game went was the only way it should have gone. And I think that's a good thing about that game's writing.
Yeah, I think the main thing that game's going for is to try and have that very natural flow of conversation and pacing with the way it, does. You can tell that the dialogue's very much adapting on the fly as you give your answers, and like it tries to make that stuff feel very natural, which, like you said, could make it feel like, oh, like this is just the way things go. It adapts to that stuff really quickly and smoothly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and for me, like, I guess what kind of, and I didn't play the game necessarily for the most part thinking like, oh, well, I want this to happen, so I'm going to say this thing. I mean, I kind of played it in the way that I thought made sense, but at the very beginning of the game, you're all standing around the campfire, and, Jonas is like, hey, I'm going to go check out this cave, like, because there's been like a bit of an awkward exchange. And I'm like, okay, I'll go with you. And then like things start happening, and I find that I'm with Jonas. And I don't know if the same thing happened for you guys, but like I just happened to be with Jonas throughout the game, and I was like, well, I wonder if I had said something different, like if I had chosen to do something else, because it almost seemed like the activities were broken up with what you can hang out with Ren, who's like your close friend, or you can kind of do something else.
But who wants to hang out with Ren?
Yeah, like it was no fun.
I gave Ren a really hard time in my game. And there's another point where you meet back up with some of your other friends, and it says, hey, like, you need to go do this, and the other people need to go do this. Like, who do you want to go with?
Yeah.
And I chose Jonas, and that's who I went with. And
yeah.
I don't know.
I remember that.
If I had said somebody else like that, I would have went with them as well instead. Like,
right.
Which, that means that the kind of conversations you're having, like, so I got a lot of backstory about my stepbrother, about like, how his, how he had some family issues, and he was in prison and things like that.
Yeah, it is interesting, and like a lot of those kind of story choices, like games have been doing for a while, like the Telltale stuff or Mass Effect or whatever. But this game does it in a way that feels a little more natural and not as much like, oh, here's your clear branching point, and like it doesn't make it as obvious that like you're just drawing the series of branches.
Right. Yeah, you don't see that structure right away, like every time.
Well, and the game doesn't always give you time, like because the dialogue system is sort of pseudo real time.
Yeah, which sometimes
frustrating.
Yeah, which was sometimes frustrating.
I mean, there were a couple times where I found it really hard to make a choice, or if it puts you through one of those goofy mini games, it was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
But, there were times where it was like, well, if I could sit here and think about this, I might make a different decision, but this is almost more like a real conversation. Like somebody says something to you, and if you don't respond within 10 to 15 seconds, like, they move on. So I did like that effect. And I guess the only other thing I'll add, and this is a massive spoiler in case anybody's concerned, some of the choices I made did seem to affect my ending. So in my ending, Michael actually didn't die. Like the time like changed, and your brother, who's like dead from the start of the game, like. In my game, like as I'm sailing the boat off the island, Michael's like there.
I'm trying really hard to remember what happened at the end of my game, and I can't.
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't feel like Michael was alive in my game, but I also don't remember the details very well.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that did not happen for me, but I can't remember exactly what did happen.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, there were some parts where you like go back to the past.
Yeah.
And like the things you say to him, like
okay.
The game kind of works it out where like it shifts the timeline based on what you tell him.
Right.
Yeah.
And I didn't make a conscious decision like, hey, I want Michael to stay alive, but I was like, hey, you shouldn't. I was like, you should date Claire, but you shouldn't run off with her. Apparently that changed the whole time.
Yeah, and then there's also like all of the weird, sci-fi, time travel, like radio frequency, like there's all of that stuff going on.
That stuff was really cool.
Yeah, and like there was some woman who lived on the island or something and had a bunch of notes on it or something like that, and like that was when I finished the game, I got the strong impression that there was more to that mystery than you could get in one playthrough, and I felt like the game really tried to encourage you to go back and dig more into that side of the mystery with multiple playthroughs. Because I went and like briefly browsed some forum chatter after I finished the game, and before diving too deep, I was like, oh wait, there's a really big rabbit hole here that people are trying to piece together a lot of stuff that you can't necessarily get in a single playthrough.
Right.
I mean, I think and that was slightly a bummer for me. Like, I think a single playthrough totally works. Like, I was happy with my ending, and like I remember thinking, like, okay, like that was like I enjoyed the story I got from this. But then at the same time thinking, like, oh, there's a whole lot more in the game that I would have to replay content in a slightly remixed, like, different way to really get the full picture if I wanted it. But that game definitely has some neat stuff.
Yeah, the game was cool. I definitely enjoyed it as well. I remember early on in that game being sometimes frustrated by the dialogue system, but once I got used to it, it was okay for the most part. But I constantly felt like I was missing out on dialogue options just by, taking too long or trying to explore a dialogue tree and realizing that it was just locking you out of stuff if you chose one thing over another. But like I said, you gotta get used to that, and it does sort of build that natural dialogue flow that game has that not a lot of games do.
Well, anything else before the break?
I'm good.
Not for me. Them's was some games.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Well, we will take a short break and then move on to some news items.
Some news.
Your ATACS panel. Welcome back to ATACS, Adults Talk About Cool Stuff. Your panel here, Flex, Nate, and your stand-in host, Ryan. So we've got a few news items to talk about. I have not caught up on the news, so Flex and maybe Nate will be driving some of this discussion, but we have some items I'm definitely interested in hearing about, starting with the item I have here is FF15 story patch. Is that right, Mr. Flex? What are the details there? I'm playing Final Fantasy 15 now. I have to know.
That is right, Ryan. I am here, Flex on the field from Tokyo, Japan, the Windy City, with all the hot scoops.
A real dangerous line of work. Stay safe out there.
Yeah.
There's a snowstorm in progress. Traffic is closed. Godzilla.
ATACS news correspondent braving the elements here. So yeah, Nate probably knows just as much about this as I do. So correct me if I misstep anywhere, but they had talked about some upcoming patches for Final Fantasy 15, and I don't know if they put a date on when these are going to happen, but
no.
Yeah, it includes some normal stuff like performance and whatever, but the interesting and or confusing and or worrying one is they're going to patch in more story. Specifically in Chapter 13, which I haven't played any of the games, so I don't know what that means. But I had heard some complaints that like some of the story in the game is kind of light, and that like I mean, the thing, like the really pejorative thing I've heard from people who've played the game, like listening to other podcasts and stuff, is that like if you don't watch the Kingsglaive movie, then you're missing out on some details that make the story make sense.
Ew.
And it sounds like they're going to add in some extra story scenes around Chapter 13 to help explain some things. Which, companies are allowed to do that, but like, and companies, games get patches all the time to help performance or to like make gameplay balance changes or whatever, but I think there's like an extra. It's extra weird to patch story stuff because like that's like a story is the thing you feel like you need to have done before the game goes out.
Yeah,
like
that's definitely a bit unusual. Like you said,
and it doesn't sound like they're planning on changing the story. They're just trying to add more context to certain things that maybe don't make sense.
Yeah. I'll read a small little excerpt here. Our early plans are to enrich certain aspects of the game, adding gameplay enhancements for Chapter 13, buffing ring magic, etc. We'll have specifics of what and when for you at a later date. After that, we're hoping to delve deeper into the story, adding scenes that will give you new insight into character motivations, such as why Ravis walked the path he did. We will need a little time with these as they'll need to be localized and voiced in other languages, but we'll let you know the details once everything is set.
Yeah,
so I mean,
that means it's a long ways off.
Yeah, that means it's a long way away, and it means that they like that. I mean, that sounds to me like they've done no work on that extra stuff at all, which makes it sound very reactionary. Of like, oh wait, maybe our story was not as clear as we thought, and people are having issues with that, and we should do something about that.
That's the very unfortunate way that comes across as, and I have no idea if that's the case or not, but it does seem that way from that statement. Like, oh, people didn't like this, so now, hey guys, we're gonna fix it. Give us some time.
Yeah, so like that's kind of a bummer. I mean, especially like if someone was really excited about the game and got it and played through it and felt bummed about the story, and then was to see this news and be like, oh, well, if I want to see the real story, am I going to play it again in a few months, or like what am I going to do? Like, it's a weird timing issue as well.
It is. Weird thing.
That's the thing. Like, because I mean, as somebody who's playing the game, like I have mixed feelings about this. On one hand, I got to give them credit for realizing that something is missing, and if they're not changing like the core context or the canon, they're just adding in more context. Like that's kind of strictly a benefit for their customers. Like they don't have to do this. Game is out, it's sold. Like, they're just doing it to kind of enhance the final product. So I got to give them props for that. But at the same time, like you said, there were details that should have been filled out within the game. Like I'm probably going to try to finish it this year, which is only there's like 2 more weeks left.
Yeah, I mean the patch will not
play it again.
Yeah, the patch will not come for months.
Hearing that makes me think maybe I should. I think is Kingsglaive free or it's on Netflix? Maybe I should try to send that up. And
I have no idea.
Yeah, I actually don't know.
I've seen it around. I think you can see it for free. I don't think you have to pay for it. But I was kind of ignoring it because I felt like the game was a little bit overmarketed anyway. But if that would add some interesting context to the story, I could see. Watching that. It is definitely disappointing as somebody who's playing the game to feel like you're not getting the full experience.
I think that's really the bummer. Like, I mean, they had the movie and they had an anime or something.
They've had time.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, an anime. So yeah, I mean, they have other avenues to tell this story, but it makes it. And I realize they want to make it like a bigger media push than just a video game, but it really comes across as like if you just play the game, you're really not getting a meaningful enough story by itself. Which is kind of a little bit of a bummer.
I think the place I ultimately land on this is kind of what Ryan was saying, which is that, like, hey, they're patching a game to make it better, and developers do that for all sorts of reasons.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, it's probably better for them to do that than to just not do anything.
Yeah, I agree with that.
There's a problem. So that's sort of the core thought I have on that.
Yeah.
But it is such a weird thing, and it does sort of inspire some lack of confidence in the game at this state that it's in now.
Yeah.
So if you were somebody who was excited about it, or just started playing it or was thinking about picking it up next week, then you suddenly are going to think about the game differently.
Yeah. It's simultaneously... I totally agree they should patch and fix stuff, but it's simultaneously like kind of a burn against early adopters,
Yeah.
and it also makes you feel even more that they kind of rushed the game out the door and it wasn't really ready, which is crazy considering how long this game was in development already. So it's just a weird thing.
Yeah, and like we said, they're trying to do a make good, and that's good, and nobody is making them do that. But then, the thing I think of is like, well, is there a better way they could have done this? Like, could they have added an optional side, basically like DLC that was free, that showed something about that character or whatever information they want to show, that was like, its own little bite-sized piece of content that you could go play and it be enjoyable on its own, but give that same information instead of slotting something into the middle of the storyline. But that's probably more work.
Yeah.
So, they're already doing more than they have to. Maybe I shouldn't say they should do better than that.
Ultimately, too, I would feel a lot more hostile towards this if they were changing, like, the context, or if they were actually altering the story in some way.
Yeah.
Like, and as a side note, I do feel like maybe they've spent a little too much time, probably just in the past 6 to 12 months, probably not throughout the course of the game's development. Maybe so, like kind of marketing the game. They've invested a lot. They've got like I think a mobile game and an anime and a movie, all this different stuff. And I mean, it all is great, but it's like, when the game keeps getting delayed, and and in the end of the day, like, I don't know. I guess, like you said, they're trying to make it more of a long running thing? Question mark. Like, I don't know what they're going for by investing so much into marketing, because like, I bought the game for retail $60 with a 10% discount off Amazon, and I don't see myself spending a lot of extra money on it. I mean,
right.
I like it. Maybe if there's some other interesting content, I'll pay for that. But it's.
What do you think about hats?
What do I think about what?
What do you think about hats?
Hats? Not necessary.
Okay.
Anywho, so any closing thoughts on the Final Fantasy 15?
Yeah, I think we pretty much covered it. I think it's a weird thing.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think it's a terrible thing, but it is a weird thing.
Yeah, it's more weird than bad. Like, I don't really think it's necessarily a bad thing, but I think it just kind of continues to highlight troubled stuff around this game's development.
Yeah.
Hopefully other developers don't follow suit. I feel like that's just.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the dark end scenario here is that places would just, release without half of their cutscenes and then patch them in later. That would be the bad road that could go down.
I doubt it, but
hopefully not. Hopefully that would never happen.
The post-apocalyptic game development future.
Yeah.
We'll put the dialogue in later.
All right, so our next item on our news list is labeled Crytek Mess.
All right, I'm reporting here from Frankfurt, Germany. We have.
You got there really fast.
Yeah, those private jets are pretty good nowadays.
Okay.
Seems that we have employees of Crytek have not been getting paid.
This is why Flex is not the host, because he has magical powers to teleport between locations on the globe.
Yeah, it's pretty.
I don't have such powers.
Yeah, it's my own secret sauce. So Crytek studio, who makes most known for Crysis, and they did, I think, the original Far Cry. Their employees have been, in the past few weeks or so, or maybe even months, have been letting people know that they aren't getting paychecks. That's more or less the long and short of it. But it sounds like since as early as May 2016, they have been getting either delayed paychecks or no paychecks at all. And the impression I get is Crytek's basically been saying like, hey, we don't have the money right now, but you will be paid shortly. Or, I mean, if not saying that directly, that seems to be the insinuation.
The article says again, this has happened before?
Yeah, so that's the other crazy part, is that this happened in 2014. The exact same thing happened, and they were not paying their staff. And they ended up signing some licensing deal with Amazon that got them some money, and they were able to start paying employees again. But like, I mean, that was already bad. Like, anytime you can't pay your employees, that's terrible. And then to 2 years later have that happen again, like, I kind of can't believe anyone would want to work for them at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, like, finding good jobs is hard, but like, this happening again speaks to some real trouble going on in this studio. And like, I can't imagine that's normal for any company to, like, when you're having financial troubles, to just not pay your employees. Like, is that a thing that flies? Like, what? How does that work?
I think so.
I mean, that's the kind of thing you hear of in like startup environments, right? You have these companies with people go to work for them in the hope that the stock will do well, or the company's idea will take off, and that you'll be kind of a front runner on a rapidly growing business. But it's also a very risky endeavor, and a lot of startups fail. And like, you hear horror stories from people in those environments about how, like, when the financials start to run off the rails, companies will start missing paychecks and then eventually close their doors. I guess, I mean, maybe it's, this is the entertainment industry in a sense, the gaming industry, and maybe it's a lot less common to see this on such a large scale, and I think bigger companies try to handle this maybe more professionally. But maybe that's what we're seeing here, like, whether it's poor accounting or lack of a revenue stream, like,
Yeah, it kind of seems, I mean, it could be all of the above. I do wonder if, they maybe just don't have a real good, reliable, like, long-term source of income, because, like, looking at the games they've made, like, they had Crysis going for a while, but after 3 of those, they haven't done any. I have no idea how well Rise did, which was an Xbox One launch game. But that game was 3 years ago, and since then, I mean, here's the games they've made since then. The Collectibles, which was a phone game. Arena of Fate, which I don't know anything about. The Climb, which is an Oculus VR exclusive. And then there's something called Robinson the Journey, which is also a VR game. I don't know anything about that, though. So, like, they really haven't put out a lot in the past 3 years, and if they don't have, like, any other source of income, like, I could see those games not really doing much for them.
Yeah, so, and I mean, Crysis, I think, it got a name as sort of a really high-fidelity PC game back in the day. Plus, I think they probably made some money licensing that engine, but I imagine now, like, pretty much everybody's on Unreal or Unity, or,
right. Yeah, I mean, like EA, they all use, what is it, Frostbite or something. So, like, there are definitely other engines around, but yeah, like, I don't think Crytek is making big bucks on any engine.
Yeah, the Crysis engine is something I haven't heard about lately.
Right.
The Cry engine is what it was called.
That's not good news for.
Yeah.
Crysis.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot more to that story other than not getting paid for making games sucks.
Yeah, not getting paid for work done is no good.
If they don't do something quick, it sounds like they'll probably be closing their doors.
Yeah, that's kind of this happening a second time in a 2-year span. Like, I have a hard time imagining that this company is going to be able to survive. At least not in the state that it's currently in. Like, maybe if someone buys them and reshuffles things, and I don't know. maybe they can survive in some way. But like, it's just like, even if they get, because like last time they survived by doing some kind of licensing deal with Amazon, like even if they pull something like that again, you're just going to wonder like, okay, how long until it happens again? They just don't seem to have their stuff together at the moment.
Yeah. And not enough good content, I guess, to sell.
Yeah.
All right, so next up on the list is it sounds like Nintendo has had quite a bit of news here lately, ramping up the Switch, among other things.
We're going back to Tokyo. We did this in the wrong order.
Trip.
Seems like Nintendo's been a bit of a leaky faucet lately.
Yeah, they have been. Yeah, there's we got a trio of Nintendo quick items here, so I'll just run down one at a time and just see what comments we have on them. The first one that came out was that Nintendo is offering cash bounties to anyone who finds 3DS exploits for them. So they're basically wanting people to hack or pirate or whatever the 3DS and then tell them how it's done, and then they'll pay them for knowledge of those exploits. Yeah, they're just putting out public bounties. Apparently the bounties range anywhere from $100 to $20,000 for anyone who can find security vulnerabilities in the 3DS.
Let's go ahead and put all of the Nintendo news on the table, but I want to weigh in on that one.
Okay. Yeah, I got some more things I can read on that if we want. The second one I have is that, and this is a rumor that, but it seems fairly substantiated, that the Switch will get GameCube games on the Virtual Console, which, for me as someone who likes GameCube, is good news. And it's just a nice thing to see them. I mean, we'll see how well they do it, but you know, they're
start making a working Virtual Console.
Yeah,
right.
But it's at least a decent sign that, hey, like, they're still gonna try and get new stuff on Virtual Console. And then the third thing I have is that one Patrick Klepek, who is good at breaking news, he reported on some leaked patents from the Nintendo Switch, which don't have a lot of details in the stuff he reported on, but it does seem to, the two things that it does seem to hint at fairly strongly is, one, a touchscreen on the Switch seems very likely at this point, and two, it hints pretty strongly at what appears to be something like a share button, like the PS4 has. So, okay. Potentially built-in streaming capabilities or whatever.
That would be nice to have.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to have.
Yeah. So that's the Nintendo roundup I had. So pick wherever you want to start to dive in.
Yeah. So. On that last one, I don't know how much discussion we'll have on the Switch patents. One little fun side fact on that, and I guess, so two things. First off, I'll say I like to take screenshots of games. Doing that on the Wii is tricky, and doing that on the DS is rather frustrating. So
yeah, doing it on both.
A share button.
Yeah, doing it on the PS4 and the Vita is very easy.
Yep.
Relatively speaking. The other thing is that I was doing some tablet shopping, and I was looking at a tablet called the NVIDIA Shield. And if you go to the wiki page for that tablet, this is pure speculation, but it's relevant to Switch hardware. NVIDIA didn't release a new model of that tablet, and the speculation is because they're partnering with Nintendo, and the Switch would be sort of a semi-competitive product with a gaming tablet. So there's some speculation that maybe NVIDIA pulled an update to its Shield gaming tablet because it's working with Nintendo on the Switch.
Right.
Pure speculation, but a fun side fact. Circling back to that first article, though, cash bounties on 3DS exploits. Is this basically like for people who try to root their 3DS or install their own console?
Let me.
Stuff.
Yeah, I'll read this real quick. Maybe this will help clarify some things. And this is from Nintendo directly. It says, below are examples of types of activities that Nintendo is focused on preventing. Piracy, including game application dumping. Copied game application execution. Also focused on cheating, including game application modification, save data modification. And then also dissemination of inappropriate content to children. Then below are examples of vulnerabilities that Nintendo is interested in receiving information about. System vulnerabilities regarding the Nintendo 3DS. And then a bunch of technical jargon. Privilege escalation on ARM11 userland. ARM11 kernel takeover. ARM9 userland takeover. ARM9 kernel takeover. Blah, blah, blah. Skipping down past the technical jargon, hardware vulnerabilities regarding Nintendo 3DS, including low-cost cloning and security key detection via information leaks. So, a little all over the place, I guess, but seems like they just really want to lock the 3DS down as much as possible.
Which has already been broken open, as far as I understand. Like,
Yeah.
there are already people that have broken open the 3DS for piracy purposes.
I mean,
Yeah.
people do this with pretty much every handheld system since at least the GBA, probably beforehand. Find ways of kind of putting your own operating system on it.
Yeah.
Or, probably doing some less scrupulous things. To me, I'm not that opposed to people being able to root their consoles. I mean, I'm sure they're doing it for piracy purposes, which is not good, but
Yeah.
I remember with the Game Boy Advance, you could, by rooting it, you could put, like, other software on it, which was kind of cool. I mean, crowdsourcing this kind of thing is a smart move for Nintendo in a way, but I almost wonder if if what they're targeting is really that detrimental. Like,
I have a bunch of question marks here. Like, yeah, I think crowdsourcing is smart, and I also think the idea of like offering bounties for people to break their stuff is really hilarious.
Yeah.
But like, there's a few question marks. Like, first of all, like, why now? Because the 3DS, the 3DS has been out for 5.5 years, and like the only two reasons I could think of is I wonder if there's any similar infrastructure between the 3DS and the Switch that could help them learn things, and then the other thing is maybe if they're wanting to just put the 3DS to bed and like do one final firmware update or something, or software update or something, and then never worry about it again. They just want to do it in one fell swoop. I don't know. But like those are the only things I can think of.
That almost never happens, right? You see that with like operating systems. They basically have to constantly support and update them.
Yeah. The other thing I was thinking of is like Nintendo, more than even most companies, seems to be like just really, really terrified of piracy. So maybe now that they're
very heavy-handed.
Yeah, so maybe now that they're more online than ever, they're just, I don't know, trying to tackle this more than they ever have before. I don't know. Like
I think your point about the why now, those.
Yeah, it's just a little confusing because this is not a new console, not a new handheld. So it's a little weird. Maybe they thought it was safer than it was, and they've just realized that, like, oh wait, people are breaking this thing everywhere. We need to get on this.
Years after I mean, the 3DS was probably cracked like within the first year, if not the first 2 years. So
yeah,
maybe now Nintendo's caught wind of it.
Yeah, Maybe this is just another example of Nintendo being really slow.
I doubt that's the case, but it is kind of funny to think about.
Yeah. Who knows? Oh, Nintendo. Yeah, they even, like, with their piracy stuff, like, Super Mario Run needs an internet connection to play, so, like, there's a phone game that people can't play on the subway because they can't get internet there.
Yeah. When did that come out? That's very recently, right?
It just came out this past week.
Yeah, super recent. So like
Almost
they're
like a news item in and of itself, right? Nintendo.
yeah, I guess
releasing
so.
Yeah.
A phone
Yeah,
game.
I mean, it literally launched during one of my classes, and all my students completely tuned out.
Oh no!
That's great. Oh, that's fantastic.
There was,
Oh,
like
no.
somebody literally announced during my class, like they were all working on stuff. It wasn't like lecturing or anything, but somebody literally.
Someone just like stands on their desk.
On the iPhone store. Go get it! And everybody pulls out their phones. And I'm like, okay, sure, we'll play Super Mario Run.
I like Nintendo too, so I'm cool with that.
Oh, that's amazing.
You put a Super Mario Run question on your next test.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the Nintendo the Nintendo news.
And news.
Let's workshop that one.
Okay, all right, maybe next time. Look, I'm good at reporting the news, not with words.
We haven't had time to polish up our ATACS jargon.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone has any more thoughts on those. I think
Yeah, I think we covered it.
Yeah, GameCube games on the Switch, that's cool. I
Yeah,
hope
that's
they make
cool.
a better virtual console system.
Yeah, the way that system's virtual console and whole internet structure shapes
Yeah.
up is going to be a big question mark, like it always is for their systems.
Yeah, I mean, it is nice to see that, because I think GameCube is really the only platform of theirs that has never been on Virtual Console in any capacity. So, like, it's nice to see that that'll
Right.
finally get there, but I'm with you guys. Like, I think the Virtual Console has bigger problems. Like, it'll be great to see some GameCube games on there, but I'd rather the Virtual Console just be better in general.
I guess we'll wrap up. So before we do our normal question, I wanted to pose a special Christmas holiday edition question. So we have the December Steam sale coming up, and a lot of deals around the holidays. Anything that you guys are eyeing in particular, or?
For the Steam sale, I'll probably pick up some stuff when that comes around. Probably one of the main 2016 games that I would like to pick up is Hitman.
Man.
Yeah, that game got a lot of good reception this year. That's also probably the top Steam game I'm looking to pick up.
Anything outside of so one of the reasons I ask is because I've been in the market for a laptop or an Ultrabook, and I've seen some really good deals on the Surface Pro, so I might be going in that direction. But
Nice.
I've also seen some deals on things like Oculus, on like GeForce 1070s, some high resolution monitors. I don't know if you guys are looking for any new like
Yeah.
PC hardware or
I already
hardware.
got my 1070, so I'm good on that front.
I'm jealous.
Yeah, part of me kind of did think, like, maybe I saw some Vive deals going around. Maybe I could, and the Oculus Touch controllers look good, and there's some deals for those around too.
The one game this year that I think I'm not going to be able to play, and I'm going to feel a little bit of regret for it, is Eve Valkyrie.
Yeah.
That's a game I've heard really does the VR experience justice, and it's just a little too much for me to pull the trigger right now.
Yeah.
Sales, it's still, I need a $350 video card upgrade plus a $600 headset.
Yeah. It's still, I think, as much as I'd like to get one, and like to be honest, I could afford it, and as much as I'd like to have one to mess around with, like, there's really not that many things I'd want to play on it. And even stuff like, people said Eve Valkyrie was like a good showcase for VR, but I also got the impression that people didn't really play it that long. Like, I got the impression it's still a fairly light game. So like, it's still not really justifying that big investment for something you're probably not going to play that long. And like, I mean, I think Rec Room looks hilarious. I think Google Earth VR Like, I think that looks cool. Like, I think there are cool things in VR that I'd like to play with, but I almost feel like at this point, just waiting for like the next round of revisions may be smarter.
Right.
But I do feel like at some point, it's not going to be this holiday. I've already accepted that, but I did think about it for a second. I do want to get in VR at some point, but unfortunately, I don't think it's quite yet the time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ditto on that.
I'm pretty much in the same boat on that. I don't think it's time for me yet. I kind of wished I was in the immediate market for some PC upgrades, but I just don't feel like I'm quite to the point where I need that yet.
Yeah.
I'll probably be thinking about upgrading some of my PC next year sometime.
It's a good time with the 10 series video cards and
those things coming out definitely made me say like, okay, yeah, I probably need to.
Yeah, is the 1060 out?
I don't know.
I think
honestly.
it is.
Okay.
I think it is, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I believe so.
The one piece of technology that I am going to get, which is a really stupid thing, but I am going to get a webcam and maybe think about like fiddling with doing streaming sometime next year, potentially early
nice.
next year. So try my hand at this thing all the new kids are talking about.
Do some let's play with flex mode.
I don't know exactly what I'm going to do yet with streaming. I'm more just going to fiddle with the technology at first, but then I'll figure out potentially something cool to do with it. Maybe I'll just one up Alex Navarro and be like, you did 12 hours of Rock Band for Extra Life. What if I do 12 hours of DDR for Extra Life?
Oh, and then your life on easy mode, like really boring.
No, we're going the highest difficulty all the way.
Well, on that note, closing out, let's do our normal. What is on everybody's playlist, starting with Nate. So.
Pretty much my immediate stuff is try to catch more Pokemons, finish that Pokedex, and like I said earlier in the show, I'm probably gonna get back into Thumper and give that one more good solid try. And maybe keep poking at those Superhot challenges if that keeps popping up as something I feel like doing in the evenings.
Super hot.
And then I will probably be acquiring Final Fantasy 15 and The Last Guardian at some point here to try those out.
And Flex, what's on your radar?
I will keep poking through Pokemon, of course. I have no idea what kind of time frame to put myself on. I'm kind of only playing it when I feel like it, which has not been a lot past few days, but maybe I'll get back into it more. I also am looking to get Final Fantasy 15 around Christmas, so I'll start that at some point. Christmas only being a week away. And I have one small item I did pick up in the November sale, or the Thanksgiving sale that I still haven't gotten around to, is That Dragon Cancer.
Oh.
So yeah. I'm going to try and play that before the end of the year. Probably in this next week I'll play it.
Yeah, I should play that thing too.
Yeah.
Seems like it's something worth seeing.
Yeah, I have a feeling that's going to be like a one or two sitting style game pretty quick. So I am going to play that. And I'm depending on how I feel about Pokemon, I may dig up something else from the backlog. But the only things for sure I'm probably going to play are Pokemon, That Dragon Cancer, and then Final Fantasy when I get it.
My own goals for 2016 are Final Fantasy 15 and Pokemon Sun, as I mentioned, and in addition to that, probably Severed and maybe Off-World Trading Company.
Off-World Trading Company, I feel like, is on sale every other week.
I haven't been watching it lately, but I picked it up on sale. I don't remember if it was on a recommendation list or it was on my wish list. That it just popped up on sale, and I was like, "This looks like a game I could enjoy."
It cracks me up. Like part of me would kind of like try it at some point, but it's on sale right now on Steam, and I feel like I get emails from Steam like constantly. They're like, "A game on your wish list is on sale," and I go and look at it, and it seems to always be Off-Road Trading Company. Yeah, that game's just always on sale.
Yeah. Hopefully I will have time to play it during 2016 in time for a 2016 GOTY Game of the Year chat.
Who does those?
Yep.
Which I hope we have.
maybe an ATACS special.
Yeah.
Possibly an ATACS special. But anyway, thanks to all our listeners. This has been another episode of ATACS Adults Talk About Cool Stuff with Lex, Nate, and Ryan.